Welcome to Talking Maine with the Bowtie Boys. Boy, it's a little slow this morning, wasn't it, guys? Well, today we're going to talk about invasive species, and I have with me Nancy Olmstead. Nancy, good to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time to come up here and do this.
Thanks, Tom.
You know that Jamoke friend of mine, this Bob Carlton guy.
Yes.
He and I were talking about invasives. We go way back, and one of the things we thought would be a great show to have you come on, because people don't know that there are these terrible things that can take over your garden, take over your forest, and that we need to be very cautious around them. So tell us who you are, where you work, and then we can find out who the heck is MNAP. There's so many acronyms out there in this world.
Yeah.
But let's start with who you are. That would be great.
Sure thing. So Nancy Olmstead, and I work for the Maine Natural Areas Program within the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. We're a small shop within that large department, and really, we have botanists on staff who go out and they look for and keep track of rare plants and special habitats around the whole state. And we use that information with foresters and developers and other kinds of natural resource professionals to help manage development, to give advice about how to take care of those special habitats and features and minimize impacts. We also help private landowners manage the rare plants and special habitats, and we help focus land conservation really in the state because of our database of knowledge of where these kind of special habitats are.
So your specialty, though, is not necessarily rare plants, it's more the invasive side of the business. I mean,
You
rare
got
plants,
it.
probably tell whoever's in charge of rare plants after they watch this show, I'm going to have them come up and do a show with me, because I think that I would find that fascinating as well as this.
Yeah.
So you're more into the invasive things. So what is an invasive species?
Yeah, so we started the Invasive Plant Initiative because we recognized that invasive species were a threat to those special habitats. And so invasive species are not native to Maine, and you can get into all kind of arguments about what does that mean, but for our purposes we sort of look at more or less about 400 or so years ago when Europeans came here, because the rate of introductions just really skyrocketed. Obviously Native Americans moved plants around, but on just a different kind of scale. So it's not native to Maine. It can cause some kind of a problem, whether that's an economic problem or an environmental problem, or some of them cause human health problems. And from our perspective at the Natural Areas Program, it's a plant that can invade natural areas. So these are sort of beyond weedy, they're beyond just the side of the road. Although they might be in your garden, they might also be in the woods or in the wetlands, those kinds of places.
So for the people out there, although they are not invasive plants that we can think about, is Dutch elm disease. Was brought in by the little beetle that had the fungus on it that blocks up the feeder cells inside the tree. That's one that people might identify with. And chestnut blight.
Absolutely. Same thing with beech bark disease, and we've got this horrible threat from the emerald ash borer. These are all invasive species.
And they have no native enemy. If that's why they can proliferate as well as they do, because there's nothing that's going to bother them. It's
right.
Like Japanese bamboo. I'm sure we'll see pictures of it.
Yep.
That's horrible. And at the end of the day, there's nothing that comes along and eats it here
right.
in the state of Maine. So
yeah.
it grows prolifically all
yep.
over the place. So.
You might sometimes see a Japanese beetle. I've seen actually the Japanese beetles on the Japanese knotweed, but not in enough capacity to take it really down. Yeah, that's right, exactly. They don't have their native enemies because they're from real far away. And they also tend to be very flexible plants or animals. Like they can live in a lot of different locations. So the bamboo or knotweed, which you just mentioned, that plant can survive in wet habitats right by the river, dry sandy soils, full sun, and in the shade. So there are cases where you've got this knotweed stand under the trees. It's a real bad scene. So definitely
it's a bad one. I'm sure you got a picture of it, because that's one that, as I told you, and I'll even say it again, when we see the pictures of it, my ultimate fear of my little apple orchard I have about 40 trees, and the apple orchard around them are full of the, what's the berry?
The bittersweet.
Bittersweet.
Yeah, the bittersweet vine.
And I still get Japanese knotweed sneaking in there too. That if I were to come back after not being here anymore, that my trees will be full of them because I keep it out.
Right. Well, good for you. I mean, that's fantastic. But that shows the kind of level of dedication because these plants are so aggressive. Do you want to look at a picture of the bittersweet
Sure, if you're ready.
vines?
I'm going to go by you. This would be great because I think that people get a perspective of what we've got. And thanks for working with the crew to get these pictures. Now, hopefully they'll come up.
Yeah, thanks to the crew for working with me. The bittersweet vines, one of the times of year that you can really see them is in the fall, and this photograph was taken in the fall. The vines, the leaves turn a bright yellow color, and so as they're sort of draped all over the trees, you can really see them.
There's an apple orchard on the way to my house that is just full of this. I mean, it's pretty in the fall. I won't deny that, but these poor trees, I can just see them kind of choking underneath them. And it's just because they can't get their own leaves, can't get out there.
Right.
They're competing in these things for their nutrients and food. It becomes very aggressive for them and takes over. That's a nasty guy.
Right, and they can also girdle the tree effectively by wrapping tightly around it. Those vines can be, real thick in diameter. So,
yeah. We started the show. I told you that my mother liked to make wreaths out of them, because they had the orange berries on them. And so for her, when she was still alive, I bought them at a nursery, planted it in the yard and by my telephone pole because I figured it would climb up.
Right.
Well, she passed away and there was nobody to clip them off anymore. And they not only climbed up, they started getting close to the wires. So I basically, and the root, the stalk, the stumps, if you will, were that big. And it took me probably about 3 years to dig them out, and then I used that famous pesticide, and I put it on them, and they're not there anymore.
Right.
But the seeds are all around me.
Yep.
And so when I walk through my garden or through my orchard, I look for it, and sure enough, I'll find it starting to come back up again. So I'll pull it out and then spray the root. So
well, good for you. Yeah, it's something you do have to keep on top of. Once you've got it around you, that's a tenacious one. It's a nice character. The roots have that bright orange color on the outside, so you feel like, I really got it when you get all those roots.
Yeah, I hate that plant.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And there are other plants that they can interfere with the forest succession because they form dense thickets in the understory. They can, like I said, they grow in a lot of habitats, and those dense thickets can actually have more ticks than in a natural kind of forest understory, which obviously there was just an article yesterday about the incidence of Lyme disease and how it's probably really underreported, and so we don't need any more ticks in the Maine woods.
And there's another, well, I guess that's not an invasive though, is it? It's just one that didn't survive well into the winter time, and now that we have milder winters, they do okay.
Yeah, and I think with in some parts of Maine we have increasing deer, and so obviously that's another thing. Yeah, so I think I have a photograph of some of the dense thickets of barberry, Japanese barberry in the understory.
So
if
these
your
are them
viewers want it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
See those light green shrubs that are kind of taking up space there.
Do they have the red berries on
They
them?
do have red berries, like a tic-tac. They kind of hang down below the plant. And they also have spines, which are real nasty when you're trying to pull out the barberry. You got to wear your thick leather gloves so that they don't get you.
So growing up in New Jersey, that was a horticultural planting, where you take it and you would prune it, and you could shape it pretty easily. Is it an invasive there, or is that a native habitat?
No, this is not native to the United States at all. This is an Asian plant, so it's invasive. Yeah.
So one time I did plant it in my backyard because I like to remember what it looked like with the red berries. But the cold weather has done a number on it, and so I don't believe it's still around. I don't believe. But
now you'll take a second look, right?
I will. I absolutely will. Because the other one is burning bush.
Yes, burning bush is another one. Yep, with that bright red color in the fall. Yeah, so this is how many of these species arrived, because they were beautiful horticultural plants, and they were flexible, and they could grow in a lot of habitats, and some of them can withstand harsh conditions like in parking lots. So we really need to develop some good native species that are alternatives to those, and I know that there are researchers who've been working on that. Some folks down at University of Connecticut have worked on some native plants, because we need good horticultural plants, but it's great if they can be native because they provide food for the insects that are co-evolved with these plants, and so they can digest the plant leaves and things, and be in turn food for the birds and the salamanders and the frogs and all those good things that we want in our forest.
You make a really good point. Probably one of the reasons that insects they don't have an enemy is because the animals can't digest this vegetation.
You got it.
So a deer, you sit there and say, "Oh, there's plenty of green on that Japanese knotweed." No, they can't digest it.
That's right.
It doesn't taste good to them. It's like broccoli to them.
I like broccoli,
I like
Tom,
broccoli
so I'll
too.
defend broccoli. We grow some good broccoli here in Maine,
We do.
right?
Broccoli,
Yeah, but
broccoli and Brussels sprouts, cold crops. I love them.
yeah. But you're right. You're right. The insects, they don't have the right, biota in their gut, or it just doesn't taste good to them, like you said. So they're not eating it. Same thing with the deer. Deer are no dummies. You put a nice barberry in front of them with all those spines. Ooh, no, thank you. So
No. So
yeah.
what else have we got with invasives?
Yeah, so we got a lot. We've got shrubby honeysuckles. These are, shrubs that, again, people planted. They love the smell of the flowers.
So is it a vine?
There is a vine. We don't really have the vining one very much in Maine. Mostly what we have are shrubby ones, and they have opposite leaves, and the leaves come out real early in the spring. So sometimes if you're driving along, you can look off in the woods and see this flush of light green leaves, and that's the shrubby honeysuckle kind of getting the leg up on our native
Do they
plant.
have the same flower the honeysuckle does? Kind of I don't know how to describe it, but it's kind of wispy with open
Yes.
up and
Yep.
And then if you take it off and suck the bottom of it, it's got a little bit of sweetness to it.
That's really just the vine, the Japanese honeysuckle vine. There's a location down in West Bath, and for the first time I met that plant in person and sucked some of the nectar myself. And I can see why people planted it, right? But it's another thing like the bittersweet vine where the vines will just climb all over the trees. And so luckily we don't have too much of that, but the shrubby honeysuckles, boy, I was up in southern Aroostook County where they've got such great rich soil. Real problem up there in some of the previous ag fields and those kinds of edges of forest, and all over the state. So shrubby honeysuckle is a very shade tolerant plant, so that's one of the reasons it's such a...
Do we know the origin of some of these?
Yeah, most of them are from Asia or Europe. That's the bulk of them. We don't have a climate here that yet really supports plants from Africa, those kinds of places. So Asia and Europe are where most of these are from.
So what other kinds? I mean, you had some great pictures.
So we hit on the honeysuckle. We
What's
already
this guy?
talked about the burning bush, which you got
that
up
burning
there.
bush?
That's burning bush with that red foliage in the fall and a bird dispersed fruit. So a lot of these plants that we've talked about so far, the barberry, the bittersweet, the burning bush, the honeysuckle, they have fruits that, even though the insects don't eat the plant, the birds will eat the fruit to some extent. And so,
seed
exactly.
So I have burning bush in my yard.
Yep.
And because it was pretty. I mean,
I understand.
I no longer have it. I have it on one side of the house. The other side of the house, I killed it.
Good job.
But I noticed on my neighbors in the back part that she was just letting come back naturally. There's burning bush in there. But it's on her property, so I can't take care of it. But because I didn't plant this there.
I know,
And it's like
I
it
know.
must have disseminated from
They
the seeds
do
in
that. That's exactly what
that particular species.
Yeah.
And got a whole foothold.
And you can see that one in the fall so easily because of the color. I mean, you could knock on the door and say, if you don't want those burning bushes, I'm sorry, I'll be happy to pull them up for you.
I get an easier way.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, that too. That works too. Herbicide works fine.
What about, maybe you have a picture of Rosa rugosa?
I sure do, yeah. Well, I don't have Rosa rugosa, excuse me. That is an invasive plant, though, right along the coast especially. Again, very beautiful plant, very hardy, good for those wind-swept parking lots with salt spray. But unfortunately, on our beaches, that plant can get real established and push out the dune grasses that would be the natural habitat there. I don't get real fussed about it like here in Farmington if it was in a parking lot. It's not ideal. It'd be nicer if we had a native plant that could do well in that parking lot. But along the coast, that is where the rugosa
Does that one
rose.
have like a big pink flower on it?
Yep.
Yeah, I got that in my azalea plants, and it's not there anymore but it took some time to get it out. And it was just like you described. It started as, this is a pretty, it's a perennial, it's pretty.
Yep.
And the next thing I know, it literally had taken over the side bed, and I said, this has got to go.
Yep.
And it has really fine spines on it.
All along the stems, yep. We have another rose that's invasive, Multiflora Rose. It's a white-flowered rose with like a 1-inch wide white flower in mid-June. I got a picture of that one too, showing the white flowers.
Does it sit right here?
That's it, yep.
Wow.
That's in my neighborhood. They can just really pump out a lot of flowers and fruits and seeds. And this one has backward-pointing thorns. Boy, another one that, it's real hard, it's real unpleasant to work with once you get that.
What family species of plant is that in?
It's in the rose family.
It is in the rose family.
Yep. exactly. So same family as apples
Yes,
and
yeah.
many other fruit crops. Yeah.
And so it's a fruit, is it going to be like a little bit bigger?
This one is small, so the rugosa rose hip is pretty big.
Yeah, it's a
People
big
make jam.
red bulb, if I remember correctly.
The multiflora, there are many flowers clustered at the tips, so there are many, like third of an inch wide, many small fruits clustered at the twig tips. I don't have a winter picture, but sometimes I can see it even on the highway because you can kind of see the reddish color where all the fruits are clustered. So that it's much smaller. You wouldn't use it for like jams or anything like that, the way that some people use rugosa. But
so that literally is another invasive.
It is.
Wow.
Yep, and that one's, not as shade tolerant as like your honeysuckle or your barberry or your bittersweet, but it's moderately shade tolerant. So like in the woods, I find another plant, Glossy buckthorn, and sometimes I find some Multiflora Rose in addition to like the honeysuckle and the barberry and the bittersweet.
The buckthorn that's up there now.
You got it. Yep, that's the Glossy buckthorn.
So there's a leaf somewhat like a beech.
Yes, exactly. But no teeth on the edges.
Yep.
But yes, the very straight veination does remind me of beech. But then the fruits obviously are juicy and round. They start off as green, they turn red, and then they go to black. And a single glossy buckthorn can have all three colors at the same time, which, it could be useful for IDing it if you're not that familiar.
Now, see, is that what they call a serrated edge on a leaf that's like a beech?
If it is like a beech, yeah.
See,
Toothed or serrated, exactly.
See,
you got
can
it.
Remember, I'm not that old. I can remember my forestry stuff.
I
Bob
bet.
will be impressed. I hope you're watching this. You better be impressed.
Well, that dendrology, that's
Yeah,
burned
that's
in
right.
there. Yeah.
I had a dendrology teacher. Thank God he didn't take off for spelling.
Yeah.
Wow, those are fascinating. And I've thinking buckthorn I've seen and didn't know what it was. I always thought it was more. It's like an alder leaf too, very similar. And
It is very
the
similar.
fruit is somewhat similar too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the alders have those little catkins, which almost look
yes,
like
yeah.
pine cones,
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
might be a little
yeah, yeah,
different.
yeah,
But
yeah.
the leaf is similar, except the glossy buckthorn does not have teeth.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
yeah, but it can grow in similar habitats. The glossy buckthorn is a little bit like the knotweed, grows in wet, dry, sun, shade, deep shade. The glossy buckthorn is a plant that I've actually found in hemlock forests.
Wow.
Which really scares me because, those are some
dark, yeah.
places where you don't normally find, invasive plants because they're shady, they're acidic in the soil. So that's one that actually is a one that I'd like every forester in Maine to be able to identify glossy buckthorn at 30 paces without question.
Yeah, wow. And the understory part reminds me of in the south, one of the biggest invasive is kudzu.
Right.
And if you've ever been down south, it just has taken over the understory of many of those forests
Yep.
down there. So it'd
Yep.
be similar.
Yep.
Wow, these are great.
If you don't mind, Bob,
Go,
while we're
please,
on,
go,
Bob,
go.
I just called you Bob. Excuse me,
That's
Tom.
all right. Don't call me Bob. I don't want him to think that you think I'm Bob.
No,
I'm
no,
only kidding.
Tom.
Go ahead. I've been called worse. Not much worse than Bob, but that's okay.
We were just talking about Bob Marvini, so he's on my
Yeah.
mind. Yeah, so there's one more shade-tolerant plant that's of real concern to the forest that I want to make sure everyone's aware of. And so I'm going a little out of order here, but it's the stilt grass or Japanese stilt grass. And this is a brand new detection in Maine last fall. And this is a understory grass that can carpet the whole understory of the forest. I don't know if we've got the picture up.
Is this it right here?
But yes, exactly.
Wow.
And so it's a real delicate looking small grass, can grow about 2 feet high, and just forms these horrible dense stands, even in the dense shaded understory of the forest.
Just a picture of what that
You
might
got
be.
it, exactly. So this is one that has been a real problem in forests to our south, and we just detected it in 2 locations in the fall, one in York County and one in Georgetown, Maine, in Saginaw County. So again, this is one that I'd really love if every natural resource professional was looking out for stilt grass, because we want to make sure that we nip it in the bud and don't let it spread into our forests.
So when you detect it, like those
Yeah.
2 sites, will you go in and eradicate it as best you can?
We will. So these are both private landowner sites, and so with their permission, we are helping. And so the landowners have been very gracious, wanting to do the right thing. Unfortunately, neither of these infestations are real small, so it's going to be a long-term project. But yes, we are working with those landowners. I have a grant request into the U.S. Forest Service, so fingers crossed that they'll give us some funding to assist with those efforts, because, you know, I'm a staff of one plus a few in the summer, and that'll be real helpful for us to assist those landowners. But yeah.
All right, so what other pictures do we have as we're getting?
Yeah, great. So
you got a 2-pager. I'm impressed.
I know. I'm such a Girl
good.
Scout.
This is great.
Well, we haven't shown a photograph, I don't think, of the knotweed yet.
Yes,
so the Japanese knotweed, or some people call it bamboo. I think the photograph I have is of a dense stand on the
right
camp.
Yeah.
Yes, so there's a stand there right beside the access road for a forestry site on one of the Bureau of Public Lands sites. It can be a real nuisance when you're trying to, you know, create a landing for your timber operation, or, you know, around your house, but also takes up a lot of space in the woods and can displace native
I
plants.
remember when we had an early spring where it came and then froze, and every one of those guys got hammered by that. And I thought, oh great, this is going to be what it takes to get rid of them. No, their roots were still alive, and they just grew thicker than they were before. And looked at a piece of property in Starks that it was up and down the riverbank. And interesting, and maybe you can correct this, but I called the DEP and said, if I bought this property, can I take them out? And the answer was no. They're part of shoreline zoning stuff. I think that's something we have to have a conversation about.
Since, you know, I don't know how long ago that was, Tom, but they have put in some exemptions in shoreline zoning for invasive plants. You know, the concern always is to make sure that there are some plants in place to keep there from being erosion. So they want there to be a replanting plan so that, you know, there's a gradual transition. But yeah.
The hard part was that this is all rocky.
Yes.
So you couldn't really replant. If you took them out, you couldn't really replant them. You know, that would have been a really tough case. So but if I had bought the property, I would have found a way to get rid of them.
There you go.
But I didn't.
Yeah.
All right. That's great. That one's a very tenacious guy.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to see that, if you drive to Wilton on Wilson Stream on the left-hand side, it's all that Japanese bamboo or whatever it is.
Yeah, the knotweed. Yes, it's a very tenacious plant. You know, you bring up a good question, which is, what do you do about these plants, right? So maybe you have these on your property, or you're a forester and you see them on your timber crews. You know, I think the first thing to do is to learn to identify them. And I know when you had Bob Colton on, he highlighted.
You sent me one. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, you're very welcome. Absolutely.
On me, I kind of center in on this.
Yeah. We've got our Maine Invasive Plants Field Guide. So this has 42 or 43, gosh, I don't remember now, 46 species in it. And it's got a page for each plant with photographs and tips for how to identify it. So the first thing, you know, obviously, is you got to know you have a problem. So on your land.
Purple loosestrife, yes, that's another pain in the neck plant. I thought that was a very pretty plant, so I dug it out, brought it home, and it was beautiful for years.
Yeah.
And then it died back, which was interesting, but I have it all over the place, so every year I'm pulling it out.
Yep. I'm sensing a recurring theme here.
Well, it's part of, you know, people see the pretty flowers.
I know.
This is a great perennial. It comes back and not realize it's going to spread. So now that you've gone to the landowner and you've given them some advice to how they get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, this also has advice on treatment, and reporting is helpful too. So we have an online mapping tool called iMap Invasives, and it helps everybody understand where things are in the landscape. You know, when I go out and I survey on the public lands, I'm reporting what plants I find into there. And, you know, if we were on private land, we would report with permission of the landowner. And so that's a good tool and a nice practice, so that, again, you know, the more we know about where they are, the more we can be keeping an eye open. And then in terms of hands-on help, we have a new program in my department through the Maine Forest Service. So we received a grant from the U.S. Forest Service to start a program where the Maine Forest Service is going to be running an invasive plant academy for foresters and other natural resource professionals. And once folks have graduated from the academy, they can write invasive plant control plans. You got it, the website there for this program. They can write control plans for landowners, and the landowners, you know, once the plans are approved, they will get up to a 50% financial incentive to get the plan. so up to half the cost of the plan, and then there'll be a management component where people can apply for contractor-applied treatments that the Maine Forest Service will hire a contractor to come and treat the infestations. So it's really a three-pronged approach, and that's getting off the ground this calendar year. So the website that your folks are showing.
Yeah, why don't we put the website up, guys, if we could. So it's going to run right around here
Terrific.
in a second. It's coming.
Yeah.
But, that way people can get in touch. It's www.maine.gov/DACF, Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, /MNAP.
Yeah, and that's
Maine
the
Natural Areas.
that's the website of the Maine Natural Areas Program, and I'm not sure if we have a link yet from that website to the Forest Service, but if you search for Maine Forest Service Invasive Plant Management Program, it'll be the first thing that comes up.
You need to talk to the state forester.
I know, but I can do that.
I can do that too. She only lives down the road.
You've got a great asset there right in town.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Patty has been phenomenal since she got here, and when that opening was there were a number of us who stepped up to say she's the person, and she's the person. Although I think she's scratching her head what she's done to herself, but that's all right. So we're getting close to the end. Do we have any more pictures that we need to hit on before we get to the
Yeah, so there's another plant, which is a tree, actually, tree of heaven, that I want
Chinese
to...
tree of heaven, multiple leaves.
Yes, it's got real big compound leaves, sort of like an ash tree, but the compound leaf can be as long as my arm. And
There
this
it is.
with those kind of elm-like seeds. And this is not very common in Maine at all, which is a good thing. Because it's invasive and aggressive, but it's also the host for a very destructive insect pest called spotted lanternfly, which, knock on wood, we also don't have yet in Maine, but in states to our south like Pennsylvania, and it's in New York now, this is causing a lot of problems because it goes after grapes and apples and hops and, all those good things that we want to grow.
Get rid of that.
Yeah, so we don't want tree of heaven because we don't want spotted lanternfly, and because tree of heaven is invasive in and of itself. So if folks see tree of heaven, I would ask them to report it to IMAP Invasives or to my program, the Maine Natural Areas Program. It's one that we want to, again, help landowners to get rid of. Or the Maine Forest Service might be able to use them as trap trees to detect any spotted lanternfly that might be in the area.
Growing up in New Jersey, that was all over the place.
Yes. I spent a little time in New Jersey. I was there for high school, and I didn't really know the natural world that well then, but boy, my colleagues who work in New Jersey in the tri-state area, they have some real bad invasive plant problems.
And it's one that would grow out of the cracks in the concrete. That's how bad it was.
It was a tree grows in Brooklyn. That was the plant.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah. There's one more plant that I should share with your viewers, and that's the common reed or Phragmites. This is a real tall grass that grows in wet spots, salt marshes. It can grow along logging roads. You can see the standing, the standing dead plants are this kind of tan brown color in the wintertime with the seed heads up at the top. So this is another one that, boy, if you can nip it in the bud while it's just a small patch, that's really great, because once it gets to be a real big patch like that, it's just a real challenge to work with.
There are places like that along the interstate?
Yes.
So that is the tall grasses that we see along the interstate.
Yes, sometimes. Yes, there are patches of that along the interstate, and I know that Maine DOT and Maine Turnpike Authority are trying. They're aware, I think, but they also have other mandates like safety and those kinds of things that come first.
So at the end of the day, if people see an invasive, either this show or have a question, they should contact you through the website. Can we put the website up again, guys? That would be great so people can see it. For more information, go there. There are phone numbers that are there that they can call, or they can call the department and ask for the Invasive Species Program.
Yep.
Anything real quick that's sitting out there that you worry about besides like Chinese tree of heaven? Did you see like in Massachusetts that somebody might decide?
It's the stilt grass that we talked about, and also there is a mile-a-minute vine, which is another vine. It's not woody like the bittersweet, but it's a spiny vine, and it kind of sprawls over things. So mile-a-minute vine is another one. I don't have a photograph of that one. But yeah, the stilt grass and the tree of heaven are important.
So the last question I have for you,
Yes,
have
sir.
the nurseries then stopped selling some of these things?
Yes, so we worked with the nurseries to get a do not sell list of plants in place, and so there are 33 plants that are prohibited from sale, and you know, that was done on a committee with representatives from the industry, so that's a step in the right direction.
Well, Nancy, this is fantastic. I really appreciate you coming up here and doing this.
My pleasure.
It's something we all should be aware of. Like I said, the ultimate fear I have is someday they are going to take over. And it's a lot of work to get them out of there. And
Right.
you know, these apple orchards that I know about, nobody's ever going to take care of it because they're abandoned. And that's a lot of work to take care of,
Right.
unless a forester gets hired like Bob or someone
Right.
else to be responsible.
Yeah, we have to really be vigilant to look out for them.
So I want to thank you for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Nancy.
Yeah.
So you guys got some homework to keep an eye out when spring comes around for looking for those invasives, and you've got a contact to make if you find some. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in for Talking Maine with the Bowtie Boys.